Yeah, great.
Okay.
And then share. Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, wait.
Okay, can everyone see the full screen presentation?
Yeah. Let's say Zoom windows. Covering.
Oh, yeah, let's scoot this guy down.
Thanks,
Like
Janet.
that.
Thanks, everyone. Group project vibes. Okay.
There we go. There you go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up and yeah, being present. Thank you to Alchemy Art Center for hosting us for the summer. And thank you to my family and my loved ones and everyone who made it possible for me to be here today, and for those indigenous to this land who have stewarded this land that we're on, and who still are, in spite of their lives and the land being threatened by settlers. So I am fully standing in, like, this is my work, like fully standing in the past, my ancestors, and making sense out of what's going on right now and making a new way for um, the new generations coming after us. So, um, and thank you to the Zoom people for being here. I just want to make sure that I'm
Yeah.
not like ugly. Sorry, I'm a little vain. Okay, so gotta be real. I am a hi. I'm a photographer. I guess like chronologically first. I've been exploring different art mediums lately, but photography was the first art form that I formally was interested in. I took darkroom photo in high school and I could just like hide out in the darkroom and it became very therapeutic for me. And then I became more and more interested in like pausing a moment in time, like keeping time in that way. So I wanted to start out with some portraits that I've done over the past few years, because I love like the slowness of portraiture photography. And I also love nature, as you can see, and sort of making portraits of nature. Um, that artistic practice turned into something else in 2020. So I was confronted with a few questions just like milling around in my head that I distilled into these kind of core questions over the past few years. And they're how can we care for each other? Um, how can I basically keep memory, like hold on to memory through art? How did my ancestors do that? And how can I remember them, even though I have very little to go on for like knowing them or discovering anything about them? Um, and then how can creating an archive with very little be artistic and generate those practices of care? Um, and as a Black woman, that is very, hi, welcome. As a Black woman in the US, that is really rooted in like loss and movement. Um, so my friend Sarah Vitti took this photo of artwork by, well, his at is B Mike 2C, Brandon Mike Odoms. It reads, how do you look terror in the face and still muster the courage to love? And I feel like that just distills everything. Like my ancestors have been through so much terror and yet persevered. I'm here, like I am evidence of this. A lot of this work started with my grandma. Like pretty much everything, if you talk to me, starts with my grandma, or I refer to my grandma. I wanted a process to remember her as she had dementia and her memories were leaving. Um, again, I'm not sure, I can like trace to sort of my great grandparents, like where they ended up. I don't know exactly where some of them were born or anything, but there is this Southern tradition, broadly Southern tradition, that I was researching in like efforts to kind of memorialize these memories and memorialize my grandma. And it's this trinket jug. So these would be put onto graves and they're like plastered and covered in all these little trinkets. Um, and I wanted to do that for my grandma because I have these little things, right? Like I have some of her jewelry, I have photos of her, I have video, I have some story and memory. Like some have holes in them, but they're there. So I started with a paper because I was in grad school and I was like, I want to collect these things and collect these memories and create an imaginative archive and a memorial to my grandma that's multidisciplinary because that's what I have. It's like a lot of different things to put together in remembrance. And then I also had the opportunity to photograph her as she was dealing with this loss. And before I lost her a couple years ago, um, I turned it into a installation with the photographs that I made of her, and then these you can see some of the like things on the bottom are archival photos of her, some of her jewelry, and I didn't really know it then, but I put all this like nature in there. Like for some reason, I wanted to make it pretty. And like this installation was supposed to be a dream space where we were connecting. She couldn't really communicate in the way that she used to, and I wasn't on the same like plane as her, but this was a space where I was imagining that we could connect. And so nature just seemed right for that. And I was kind of discovering more and more, as you'll see. um, okay, I'm actually gonna go past this. This is a link to my website. I wanted y'all to see, but it's kirajoywilliams.com. The project is called Remembering with Ruthie. And on my website, I have this imaginative archive. So I have like a playlist of things of songs that I think of when I think of her, like that helped me process loss and grief. I have a video I made that is itself a multimedia installation, if you will. So this very personal investigation, I was like, I can bring this to community because I was living in a historically Black community, Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, and I was seeing this sort of loss and movement and grief happen all the time. Um, and I had this package, right? Like this idea of like, let's put a bunch of things together to like remember. Um, this turned into what I call Home is in the Stories. It's an oral history and portraiture project. I went around and interviewed Black people in Bed-Stuy. We talked about what home means to them. And this was the exhibit. I photographed them and interviewed them in the tradition of oral history, which is very slow and very intentional and leaves a lot of space for the person to think, to emote, to just go on and on and on. There's a lot of rich information in that. So their thoughts and experiences of making home and placemaking were coupled with my photographs of them, sometimes in their home, sometimes in the neighborhood. And then I exhibited them in a community garden. And I learned a lot with this project and this exhibit. It just became what it was supposed to be every time. Like every time I was like, no, I want to do it this way and da 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 da. It was like, no, girl. um, so let me go back a couple. You can see that they're kind of in like you walked into the community garden and through this like tunnel like pathway thing, and then it opened up and the photos were circled around each other like they were in conversation. And I had this elaborate idea, and like then it became this through what I thought was like, oh, I'm gonna have to settle for this. But then I was like, no, like let's circle up. Like it just, that's just one example of as an artist, I really learned that I have to just listen to like what the project is giving me. And I learned about community, about slowness. These frames were lent to me by an artist's friend, who's also an artist. He collected these ornate frames, and I just thought that I mean, first of all, that gift was incredible, but they lent this like regal air to the photos. I printed on canvas photo paper, which is like pretty tactile and brought out the golden tones really nicely. And then people could listen while they walked around and looked at the photos, or they could read the transcripts of the interviews. Um, so everything was like, I wanted things to be slow. I wanted people to really feel the experiences coming off of the paper, the page, or, you know, I wanted it to be like a fuller portrait. Um, this QR code goes to my website where this archive is housed right now. So you can go in and like look at the photos, listen to the interviews or read them. I thought it was important to like make this archive of people's experiences as they're still living, and house it in an accessible place where the community can come and learn about each other. Originally, this was a book. I made this book of portraits and quotes from the interviews. And I used vellum paper so that people could read the words and see the photos at the same time. And then it developed into this larger scale project, into the exhibit. So you can kind of see some of the thinking. I'm like, okay, how do I like, without making a movie, like I'm not making a documentary, like how do I slow things down and use these photos and these quotes for a longer, slower knowing of someone, learning about someone. I had the opportunity in 2023 for the whole year to be a Create Change artist in residence at this organization called the Laundromat Project in Brooklyn. I workshopped the Homes in the Stories project and made it into a workshop. So this is the open studio. These photos are from the open studio where I first did the workshop. And essentially, I was like, I'm one person doing this work. I'm talking to a lot of elders. They're tired. I'm tired. Like, there are a lot of people in bedside doing this kind of work, which is really awesome. And so I wanted an opportunity for people to talk to each other and to get to know each other in a different way. And I know that like making art and playing with fun things is a way to kind of get people grounded, get people thinking, and expressing these thoughts and like answers to the prompts of what does home mean to you in a different way. So I created this workshop at the Laundromat Project. That's me and my dad. And a lot of people came out and were just like didn't want to leave. It was really special. Like this happened at the original exhibit as well. Like it was kind of a glitch space where you go into this like circle and then people just I did an installation of like a little living room with the couch and the TV and everything, and people were just sitting and taking up the space and like talking to each other, and they didn't want to leave. And this here too, like people were really getting the opportunity to be creative and hang out. And so it just set in like how important that slowness and listening was and how people were yearning for that. I also, during that residency, was interested in the tradition of quilting. I wanted something to ground that project in, right? Like, how do we tell stories in this collective way that signals to people? Basically, there's a long tradition of quilting, of quilt making and hiding messages in quilts, um, to tell, to communicate how enslaved people could get free. It's a very like long tradition simplified into one sentence, but there are these symbols and this tradition of storytelling and quilting. And so I wanted to ground this collective storytelling project in that tradition. Because when we put all of them together, we have like one larger story. And then I was also inspired by Faith Ringgold and her story quilts. I read Tar Beach as a kid and then got to see the quilt that that book came from at an exhibit. And I was like, this is it. Like, I want to do something like this. So those were some really deep inspirations for me. These are some of the questions that I asked. I wanted people to ground in their senses, and also to think about the future and the past at the same time, right? So what has it felt like, but also like, what do you want it to sound like in 5 years? You know, like what is home in this like layered way? So back to the question, how do you look terror in the face and still muster the courage to love? Um, I had been doing all of this work around care and slowness and the process of photography, like going and creating a relationship when I photograph people and then listening to them for 1, 2 hours. And really seeing people engage in like slowness and care practices with one another in like the workshops and everything. And then I kind of came back to myself. I think that around the time that my grandma died, I was going through so much grief and I was like thinking about death and about like just the root of this. Um, and it brought me back to this question, like my ancestors persevered. Again, like I'm here, I'm proof that like somebody loved somebody else, you know? And I this like kind of trite question, like how do we keep going? You know, it's like, how did they keep going? I have distilled some, I mean, it's like still this part of the presentation, I might be saying like more and I'll more because I'm still in process. Like I'm still thinking through it and feeling through it, but I realized a few things that the enslaved people that were kidnapped from Africa and either jumped or were pushed into the Atlantic Ocean, like their bodies became part of that ocean and they're still there. And living in New York, I'm like, that's at my feet, you know, like I can commune with them in that very real way, even though I don't have an archive necessarily of like, here, this person birthed this person, and then these people got together and birthed this, and like, but I can go to the ocean. I know that we pondered and wondered at the same moon and connected with the same trees, and the perseverance of nature, like the existence, steady existence of nature through all of this movement that my family has been through, has been grounding and kind of helping me make sense of all of this. So I've had a couple of opportunities to like play around with that. And again, like I'm really just experimenting and playing. I created this sculpture out of gel block prints and like this kind of goo that I made out of like cardboard and um, some fabric, and created this another dream space like I had with my grandma, but what you can't see in this photo are hands reaching from top and bottom. I'm imagining myself reaching to my ancestors in the ocean and them reaching to me. And this was a really cool festival art show that I like built this installation in a treehouse in upstate New York. I had, of course, my grandma's hand, other hand motifs, and then I hosted or facilitated a workshop with an artist friend and Kate, who I call my creative doula. And we were working with people to respond to artwork and then write poetry. So it was this like other multidisciplinary community engagement part that was informing the work that I brought there. It's a really cool opportunity. And in January, I was in Costa Rica at the Mauser Eco House Foundation. And again, like experimenting and playing with natural items and weaving and like braiding together and understanding how braiding and collaging and like assemblage can help me understand better, like how to be stronger, how people persevere. I just spent so much time in nature there, and was just watching, like just watching and trying to understand, you know, a banana leaf falls and then another one comes through. Like I watched them grow, and it helped me rest, first of all, and it helped me solidify that perseverance. And now I'm here, and I've been making so many things, like more than I think I've ever made. I've been using my hands. I've been so uncomfortable, and I've been like so uncomfortable. And every time I get uncomfortable and every time I get inspired, it makes me want to go to the trees or to go to the beach or like to lean on people. And of course, I'm going to cry. We saw a fox, and I really believe that was my grandma. And like, I've been meditating on the fox and how it was playful, but it was like fly, you know, and it was kind of like watching out for us, that like sat on the ridge and was like, I'm not looking at you, but I'm looking at you. And it had this like sleek, you know, like things like that. I'm like, they're so accessible. And it makes me emotional because I felt so deeply the energy of this island, like bringing together these things for me. And the discomfort just shows me where I need to root. You know, it's in like the fox. If I ask it permission to like use it to connect with my ancestors, or in the water and the trees, like watching the trees be so rooted but sway. And it's like working with clay and like digging my hands in the earth and then forming things. And um, I'm experiencing so much freedom at the same time that I'm super uncomfortable. So I think a lot of the grief is getting out, and I'm learning so much about myself and my artistry. So I'm really grateful. And I'm excited for what's next, even though being in process is like, oh! So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, online people.
We have time for a few questions. If
Oh, we
you're
have
willing
time for questions.
to Juan, and online people, if they want to ask questions. Questions for Kira.
Can you say that louder so then so they
Oh yeah, Katie is saying over here that there's time for questions if you want to ask some questions. Tana, I see your heart. Hi. If you want to ask questions, please do.
Like how I see your evolution as an artist through this presentation, like starting with like I'm a portrait photographer, like I'm doing this very like you know, you can say it in 2 words, like it's very like one of the main types of classic art. And then kind of as your journey continues going into these socially conceptual pieces and journeys that seem like so emotionally intense, like for you and your participants. And I just wonder if you could speak to that, and if it felt intentional to you, or it just felt like a natural kind of progression of your journey as an artist.
I'm gonna try to rephrase it also for the mic.
Yeah.
So, can I speak to how my journey from being a portrait photographer, very classic, like 2-word descriptor, to doing more emotionally centered community art, like how that experience has been?
Yeah, or even yeah, communally, like has a conception, like yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel like I was so desperate. I was just like, fuck, grandma's dying. Like, this is like, I don't have anything else. Like, I can't. I think actually an experience I had of like looking at photos of her, and I was seeing, I'm actually really glad you asked that because I haven't thought of this in a while. I was like seeing different angles of her. Um, and like different people that I had never seen before, or seeing like my known family members at different angles. It was just like they popped differently when I was looking at these old photos. And so that I think that was the bridge in my head. I was like, oh, people like a couple things. I needed that. People need that in the future. Um, and like photos have vibration like that. I could feel, I don't know. Tina Campt writes about the haptic nature of photography, where they're literal vibrations coming,
Like,
light, a few different reasons. Like, I read a whole thesis, but I'm like, can't say everything. So I just like, that was it. I think that the archive really inspired me to both, like, because I'm an artist. Like, I don't want to just dig through the archive. I want to like make things. So it connected that portrait photography and then the community work. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thank you. Dan.
Really like your question of what home is. And it occurs to me that you're an artist in residence. The word residence is like a certain unique idea for an artist that travels to sort of make a world. And I'm curious if you found ways to create home for yourself here in places that you said you've been really uncomfortable. Like, as someone who's, like going out into the world and needing to create safety and a sense of home, what sort of like strategies and techniques you come up with? So, tips. Nomadic art.
So the question is, what strategies and tips as a nomadic artist in different residencies do I have for making home as I'm in residence, not at home? I'm also in like a huge transition point in life and like figuring out what home is, like literally where am I going to live after this. So yeah, it's been very present and I don't know. But I think that the discomfort, always going back to earth, nature, but also relying on people, like asking for what I need. Did you ask this to make me cry again? Yes.
You said the discomfort shows you where you need to root,
Yeah.
and that you felt uncomfortable here, and that to nature. Yeah, I guess I was teasing out because that your strategy, is to just kind of run to the woods.
Yeah, it's so is my strategy just to run to the woods because discomfort helps me to root. I want to do it in a non-extractive way. So create relationship with the woods and whatever else there is, a bush if like that's what I is there, and like like I try to engage with the, like, I don't even know what plane, but just in thought, it's spiritually like, okay. Sometimes I talk to my grandma like she's right there because she is. I'm like, all right, girl, we're gonna do this. Or like, did you see that? So like just being in relationship with these things that I know are stable has helped me then find stability in places that I'm discovering. And
Um, this is super cool, and I really appreciate this. My sort of like artistic life began visual art and like photography and video, and I sort of abandoned it for more physical like ceramics and things because I was struggling with the extractive components of like video,
yeah,
especially.
yeah.
And I've been really wanting to reconnect with photography, but finding it hard to like combine those things. And I'm curious, like, where you're at in your process, like with fusing the worlds of visual art and like weaving and installation art and those kinds of things.
So the question is where I'm at in my process and my practice of fusing photography, 2D media, and like weaving and textile work. And I'm playing. I'm really playing and experimenting. And yeah, photography is super extractive. And so I think I'm like doing everything in my power to not make it be like the way that I've wanted to do street photography and documentary photography. And like, there are some people that can do that. But first of all, I'm mad anxious. And I'm like, I cannot talk to you. I cannot just go up to you. But also, like, is taking somebody's photo without their knowledge, like shooting, like there's all of this language and history around photography that is so harmful. And I just knew that I did not want to engage in that. Um, but as it relates to other art forms, I think I'm just trying to listen to myself. And sometimes I get really tired of photography and I want to do something else. And things make sense to me differently, like in different ways. I'm doing figurative sculpture now. Who knew? Didn't think I could draw. I drew something. I'm just trying to listen. And I'm 31 and I'm like, it's so late. Like everybody is doing stuff younger. Like, okay, this is where I am. I worked in the ad world for years and like was very sick. And that's what I needed to now do what I do now. And I feel like there's just going to be so many more um discoveries or like paths along the journey that end up making sense. Because of all the different experiences I've had. So I'm in a moment of discovery. And I think this also goes to Danny's question. It's like every time I get into a routine, something changes. So I'm like, okay, I know that I want to eat cereal at 7 a.m. every day. And then I have to like move and there's not the same, it's just, it's always changes. God has changed. So cereal's discontinued. I feel like ending with God is change is really good. Thank you all very much.
Okay. So next up is which one? I know you guys had an order. Okay. Next up we've got Jane, and I'm gonna escape out of there. Boop. And I'm gonna pull up Jane's. Share screen. Okay. And then we're gonna go into full screen. Sweet. All right, Jane is coming up in a minute.
Okay, cool. I would love to invite everyone actually to stand up. They're all welcome to come and play. You'd rather.
Jane is welcoming us to stand up. So you guys probably won't be able to hear any of this, but hang tight. We're gonna look at her rugs. We'll be back soon.
Like and then this is maybe number, but you can kind of it's fun to see this whole progression. And these are like a set. So this is like the field rug and then the background. Yeah. Yeah. And one is 2 clean sheets. Yeah. And yeah, I try to find them for as cheap as possible. So we're hopefully going to like $4 to $10 per rug. So yeah. 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 I don't have process with but you have to rip them all. They're usually outside. So it's a simple process, but it's really difficult to get a color composition. Like you have to work center out. Yeah. This is the world. Get up. And get up. Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
You want to do a U check?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you
Let's
can
do a
go
U
like
check.
right there.
This one?
I think the squares. Maybe? Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Sweet.
All right. All right, cool. Hi, everybody. So it's like, I don't need to like do anything else, right?
No.
All right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you can close that if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Or like go down to this like little
This
boy.
one,
Yeah.
the little. Okay. I'll wait for Evie to come up. Yeah, so my name is Jane, and I'm an early career artist. And this is my last day of my residency. So it was kind of great timing for an artist talk, though, right? So I was kind of furiously putting this presentation together, and it's mostly about what I made in the last 2 weeks. But just to talk about kind of who I am, so you can get to know me a little bit more and kind of where I'm drawing a lot of my inspirations from. This is my mom and my dad on the top. So my dad was an architect and he was a hand draft only guy. He like didn't know how to use computers. And he really maintained that doing handwork led to idea generation. And that's partly why he was against using computers, is because he really thought that working with your hands led to problem solving, like something happens with the brain hand kind of connection. And it was really important for him that all his kids learned how to draw, and he worked from home, so we would all be drawing with him in his studio. And it was very important to him that me and my sister learned like tool competency skills, like as women, really early on. So I had like a little workshop in his office that, I think I was like 7. We had like a bench vise and like little saws, and I made these little like tiny fairy chairs. I like made one with hot glue, and he was like, awesome, let's go to the store and like get you a bunch of tools. So that my art process is very much about handwork, and it's very much about design. And then that's my mom, and that's a quilt that she made from a photograph of her cat, of our cat, and I think that was actually their wedding. But I am primarily a textile artist, and just textiles and quilts. She made a couple art quilts like this, but most of her work has been taking vintage quilt tops, so like antique quilt tops, and then restoring them. And for her, it feels like a collaboration between herself and, it's almost always women, right, doing textile work, and women in the past to finish an antique like that so that it can kind of continue on in life. And then at the bottom, that's my partner, Jo, and that's some art that she made.
And we are kind of talking constantly about religion. She was raised in a very conservative Catholic community, and had to leave because she's gay. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in Catholicism, homosexuality is like it's a mortal sin, so it's like the same level as murder. So if you're not a cafeteria Catholic, like if you're a hardcore Catholic, then you're not allowed to be gay. Of course, gay people exist in Catholicism, and almost always they become priests or nuns, right? If they stay in that tradition. So yeah, she was like going to become a nun as a little kid, and that was kind of like uh, it's called vocation, but that was kind of expected of her to become a nun because she seemed gay. So anyway, Joe's great, and if you want to learn more about her work, I can let you know. But this is kind of she's putting herself in the art, so she's the kind of central figure in this. And our friend did the chainmail weapons on top of it. Uh, anyway, so I love talking about Joe. It's not about her. Yeah, so I bring that up because I've had kind of the opposite experience of her in a lot of ways where my mom was raised Lutheran and Baptist, and she had a very, very difficult time with religion and was very purposefully like, I'm not raising my children with religion. Um, and it was a very like feminist household, like as you can probably assume. So I feel really, really lucky that there are so many things that I've been able to avoid um, needing to process as a gay person that many, many people do need to process. And I've always been really drawn to religious iconography and um, Lutheran iconography specifically because that's kind of in my family tradition. So anyway, that will come up later. But kind of here's about my kind of past career. I'm making a career transition towards art and towards teaching. But I was a marine fabricator for about 7 years. So that's me in the marine fabrication shop. I couldn't find a good canvas shop, but that's okay. But while I was working there, I also made wax canvas and leather bags. So the kind of central golden one that was like the old recipe of linseed oil, not the boiled, the raw, and beeswax, and you let it cure on the canvas. You like soak it through and let it cure, and it literally becomes this like polymerized plastic material. It's so different than commercial waxed canvas, which is petroleum based, and it never like fully cures and dries. So this was like experimentations that I like turned into a business. I did sell those bags, and those are from like a production um, uh, petroleum based canvas. Um, and then there's an all leather bag on the bottom that's from reclaimed leather, which was cool. And then in 2020, I was out of work like a lot of people, and I started making masks. And that is my roommate who started working with me. And we made, us and one other sewist made 25,000 masks in 2 years. And it was a crazy learning experience. Um, it was really hard, but it felt really, really good to be using my trade in a way that was helping people immediately around me. Something cool about that business is that we also did a sliding scale program where masks that were twice the uh, retail price, so the retail price was $10. If you bought a $20 one, someone could get a mask for free, and it was by self-described financial needs. So people just on the website could put free masks in their basket. Um, and we distributed, I think, 5,000 free masks. And we had porch pickup. It was really cool. But I also got a repetitive wrist injury from sewing, which makes a lot of sense. So a lot of as someone who is a tradesperson who's kind of like personally felt the effects of how the textile industry is really extractive. It's mostly women in um,
around the world uh, that are making all of our textiles, right? And it is hard on your body. And I just read an article that the average garment is worn about 7 times now before it's discarded, which I think 10 years ago it was the average was 15 times. So I know that that is not the culture here or on the island, but like the larger like culture of the United States is yeah, women in global majority countries making our garments. And that's part of why I wanted to transition away from uh, uh, purchasable objects or non-art objects, production objects, because we're just our paradigm right now with textiles is just so destructive, and it's super difficult to make a business that's not either extractive of people or extractive of the earth or both. So that's kind of part of my transition away and why I'm here. Oh, when I was selling things, I had to get really good at photography. So this is like styling and portrait photography on the left. And why is it, what's funny about it? It's just so cute. Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, we.
Oh my gosh, you guys had it. Okay, awesome. Yeah, you guys had that mask. And yeah, Sienna was I was friends with her mom because we worked in the canvas shop together, and she started working for me, and now she's a fashion designer in Miami, which is so cool. She made that shirt that she's wearing, so we were kind of doing some like cross promotion. Um, but yeah, so this is just me like I was like maybe I'll be a photographer. That would be cool. That was really hard to do, make that work financially, but I this was me just kind of starting to get into like visual language that was two-dimensional instead of three-dimensional objects. Um, what?
The little pancakes are perfect.
Little pancakes. Oh yeah, these are like these are little cookies that like have pressed borage on the top. So like, you know, a vibe. And oh yeah, this was cool. This is not my textile work on the right there. That was a queer maker who was hand looming these really amazing tea towels that really last forever and were super beautiful and was having a really hard time with photography, so we did a trade. But anyway, I love making other people's stuff look good. It's like so fun for me. Um, and I really enjoy it, but it's hard to do that full time in Bellingham. So this was a piece that I wanted to show you because it kind of relates to some of the structural work that I've been doing at the residency. This is a piece that I did in 2013. I think I was, yeah, 20, I was 22. And this is like, it's hard to tell what it is. I unfortunately don't have video footage of it, but this is like a huge plexiglass nautilus, and it comes up to about here on me. And it's made from like a single sheet of plexiglass that is scored like cardboard and then folded in on itself and then riveted together. And this was a piece that I did for this museum that I was working at the time, Mindport Exhibits, which just closed this year. But it was fortunate to hang in the museum until it closed last year from 2013. So that was a huge honor. And this is from the retrospective show that happened earlier this year. And this piece was about kind of structure and light and scale and kind of uh, feeling tiny and big. These kind of feel like things that are under microscopes, maybe. But the smaller ones turn and project shadows on the wall that kind of overlap with each other. So yeah, reoccurring theme I think in my work is structure. So here's kind of some other work that I have done when I was in process of figuring out what I was trying to do. This is my Marimo moss ball bag shot on my friend Jess, so I did those photos as well. And then on the right, this was a commission that I did that's like it was kind of there's some sexier photos that if you want to see later that were professionally shot, they're great. This is my friend and she wanted like a rollicon, which is like um uh a Swedish brushstroke style, and she wanted this kind of it went around her neck as well, and she wanted this like corset to celebrate like her pregnancy and like help hold her boobs up. And that was really fun to make and really felt like this art object. And her and I bonded over our like ancestors being from a similar area in Sweden. So it was really fun for us to do some of the research for that project and like come up with this art object to celebrate her pregnancy. And this is the stuff that I made at the residency, which I kind of wish I put this slide at the end, but I'll talk about everything that I made here. So first is this rug, and this is all sheets from the island. Maybe this is a little bit too dark. Yeah, it's all sheets from the island, and I was working on it and I sent it to Jo, and then she sent me back this this image from Hildegard of Bingen, and she was like a Benedictine monk who would kind of channel she would have visions about God and make paintings about them. And this was yeah, I know. This was kind of about a near a conversation that we were having, that Katie and I were having in critique group about um, women creating art in textile work that is kind of hidden and not considered art. So Kira had mentioned like quilting before. That's like the real classic example of what I would consider an art practice that the larger culture like doesn't consider an art practice that's considered decorative. And it's kind of like it's almost like it's like the bottom rung of like functional art textiles a lot of the time because it is mainly done by women. And it's so interesting to touch vintage textiles and to look at vintage textiles and see that some of the makers like really cared about the composition and really cared about the colors. And doing this kind of work, you have to like try something and then unpick it, especially if you don't have like photography or a way to mock up your work, right? Like the way that you plan things and do things is by trying them and usually undoing them. And I've watched my mom do that. I've watched other quilters do that. And it's extremely like time consumptive and precious. So I wish I included a process shot, but I did a big pink ring around this one and I didn't like it. So I picked it out, which was very sad because it took me literally an entire day to do it, to like rip the sheets and then and put it in. But it was a good kind of reminder of like why I'm doing this type of work is partly to feel what that like process, what that art process has been like for women who are kind of making necessary objects uh, out of unused rags, out of, you know, these are rag rugs, right? Out of discarded materials. And yeah, the rugs are also an exploration of like beauty and a different idea about textile consumption and recycling. And I think a lot of any recycling and any reusing is great, but sometimes I feel like things that are upcycled or things that are very obviously like we made this out of trash, isn't it cool? Have a place absolutely, but I think it's also good to be reminded that like you can make something beautiful out of $1 drop cloth sheets from the thrift store. Yeah. So talking about ancestry work, I got to take my mom to Sweden in 2019, and we went to a lot of the records about people in the area are kept in churches, which is complicated. And we went to Dimbo Church, which is where the women in her family, they were from that village. And the churches in Sweden, they're open, like no one was in there. We could just walk in there. And there were all of these like really beautiful objects. This amazing rug, this amazing like mid-century rug was on the floor. Um, there was this really cool like Lutheran pulpit, and there was like a Jesus in the corner, not particularly like in the center of things. He was just like there. And kind of equally just there was this lion statue, which is so cool. And the yeah. The quote under, or the translation of the text under it is something like we found this really old lion under the church, and we don't really know what it is. It could be part of a baptismal font that's medieval, or it could be older than that. We don't really know, but this was a religious site before it was a church. So that was fascinating to me to see evidence of like pre-Christian religion kind of everywhere in Sweden. And this was an incredible museum that I got to go to in Gotland. I promise there's no more vacation pictures after this. But these are picture stones which only exist in this one place. And this kind of snake witch stone on the edge is way older than all of the others. And they really know nothing about it. It's the, huh?
So crisp.
They repainted it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they definitely repainted it to show you could see so you could see it better. But the imagery is part of why it's so mysterious is because this imagery only appears in like Celtic traditions, and there has not really been a lot of like contact with that part of the world that they know of in that area of Sweden. It's like an island in the Baltic Sea. So mysterious, right? So I have been thinking about this for literally the past like 6 years. And then I got to make these prints at Alchemy that are of the lion. Thank you. So the text is Swedish. It says found under Dimbo Church. And it has some lin flowers, some flaxseed flowers as well. So this was my favorite of the prints that came out. And then simultaneously, I was making this basket that was from weeded wisteria, and then also some willow that got kind of knocked down when some trees were being taken out on the property. And the basket above it, that is all willow, I made last year. And it's like an egg style basket. It's like a hoop style instead of a post style. So willow is something that I'm like just starting to learn about. Um, and it has like a whole amazing cultural history that I don't have time to get into, but that I just wanted to touch on here. So this basket is also woven with indigo, with yarn that's been dyed with indigo, and it's on a linen. This is a vintage textile, a linen textile that I've dyed with indigo. So I kind of made the print to go with the basket. I made the basket first, and I kind of finished weaving it out and didn't like how it looked, so I unpicked it. Um, but this was me thinking about how do I make an object that um, maybe isn't functional, but has like an emotional purpose, maybe like an altar purpose, and feels in relation to like um, the emotional experience of traveling to where my family is from and looking at things that people in my ancestral line have looked at and have maybe made. So that was a really, uh, that was a really interesting process. And this is like a little ceramic experiment. I think making like some ceramic eggs for it would be cool. And part of why it goes with the print, I think, is because um, like eggs are carry a lot of symbolism, and I think talking to the text talking to the basket, um, I think is also kind of open-ended, like what was found under the church, um, what kind of pre-Christian uh, religious items could be under the church. Yeah. And these are just a couple more experiments. We're getting to the end here. So this is I printed the lion on another vintage textile and kind of was playing around with like an altar setup with my basket. And then this is kind of like a ghost quilt cyanotype. So cyanotype is like a photographic process that I'm just learning about at Alchemy. And this is a pretty big scale, so it's a pretty big print quilt, but kind of experimenting with uh, quilts as like memory objects, especially for me, because I've seen so many and there've been so many like in my house over the years, and something at scale to feel kind of childlike interacting with it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll go back to my other page here with all my objects if you guys have questions. And thank you to Alchemy. It was so incredible to have so much time and space and equipment and fabulous instruction to be able to make things that I've literally been thinking about for years and years. So, do you guys have any questions? Oh, okay.
Okay, so we were like, where are these snakes coming from? How are
Yeah.
they getting over there? I'm like, where are these people seeing lions?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, my real question is, do you leave any like symbols and meanings to things like the there and what we
Yeah.
think that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's weaving is a pretty intuitive process for me, and I usually find the forms afterwards. But this to me looks like a solar section or like an earth section. So to me, it's feeling like if this is field rug and sky rug, this is maybe earth rug. So I think that's kind of the direction that I'm going with it. And I wove it looking at the Alchemy floor, kitchen floor, which is like a really, it's almost the same color as this blue. So the rug on the floor kind of fades out with the rest of the navy blue, and then you see um the green and the the yellow in the center more. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Um, love the print. Wondering if you have any plans to kind of further explore like the idea of translating those archaeological objects into more prints. Like,
Yeah, I would like to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think for I like them because I can put them with a more functional object, and then I think it elevates the functional object into like, oh, this is like an art is happening here, like and some ideas are happening here. So yeah, I would like to continue to do that. And it felt really good. It felt really good to like look at uh this object a lot and kind of translate it through drawing. So I think for the purposes of like the basket composition, I think it makes the most sense to use the black and the blue one. But in terms of like what turned out, I kind of want to continue to explore this feeling because it felt more like stone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is the print screen printing?
Yeah.
And but the surrounding flowers are like a different screen, maybe? Is that
Yeah, it's so this was a single this one was a single screen that was smaller. Yeah, I made 3 screens and then the black and the blue were a 2 screen print. Yeah.
I was just thinking about what you said at the beginning about how like textiles are so often sort of like put on some arbitrary sort of lower rung.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like it's interesting how like the artifacts that are left are so often these like stone, like
Yeah. Yeah.
these things, and like looking at all of your work together, it's really cool how you're sort of like making these pieces that often don't exist in the historical record, but that are like and were the work of women and like I don't know, having it there with that, it's a cool thing.
Thank you. Yes, that's a more eloquent way to put what I was trying to say earlier. That yeah, filling in like the soft objects that have been lost just through time because of the nature of the materials. Um, yeah, and imagining them because there is no idea. Like we have no idea what those objects looked like. We can make guesses about like what materials were available in order for people to use. Um, yeah, yeah. And I do want to acknowledge too that like doing this type of ancestor work as like a white person is something that uh like just as a disclaimer too for this talk existing in the world is something that should be like considered very deeply. And it's important for me to not teach a process that's not in my like ancestral lineage. It's important to learn from other artists, other craftspeople who are teaching to it's important to show up to those classes and learn from those people and interact with those people, but not to like take those practices into your personal art practice or to teach them, if that makes sense. So yeah.
I just want to give you your props because you worked so hard. You worked so hard. And I can see, I'm so grateful to see like how many years of creation this has been. And I also love that, like, oh, I hate the word juxtaposition, but literally juxtaposition
cool,
of
yeah.
like academia trauma.
Yeah.
Of the like these ancient processes and ancient inspirations, and then the guesswork at like, okay, but what existed? Like, how did they get the stone to the church, right? Like, was it maybe a basket or a wheelbarrow? Like, what?
Yeah.
How did they? These things that don't exist. It's so cool to see. So I don't have a question. I made it. I just wanted to give you your props for like how much thinking and effort and like hours and hours you put in. So
Thank you for seeing that.
yeah, I see that.
Yeah, it's really cool to see the transformation of your like professional, artistic, and craftsperson career, and like how you're formulating that. And like I feel like you're in a really interesting and exciting place right now.
Yeah.
I wondered whether the moments in the rug making when you have to undo what you've done, I wonder what that might within the creative process. Whether you notice how a piece might feel different, whether or not you've had to do it the slow way or undo it or wait to have the materials at hand to complete the piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like kind of how that process feels emotionally or just the
Anything
practical
you can say
process of
about
it.
the role that sometimes having to go back and undo
Yeah.
work might
Yeah, I was really thinking about that a lot today and whether that is kind of necessary for the type of textile processes that I'm doing just inherently. Or if I need to like trust myself when I get to a certain point and I'm like, that looks good. And like stop instead of like continuing to add. Because it does feel like it feels like putting on an outfit and then you're like, I have too many things on and you take one thing off, but it takes like an entire day to take the thing which makes it so frustrating. But yeah, it is just textiles are slow and like I like these rugs because they do feel fast in some ways because you're using like a pretty thick gauge. I didn't show like some of the weavings that I've done, but you know, like a small tapestry weaving takes as much time as like a rug. So in some ways they do feel really fast. But yeah, it's like a very slow materials gathering process where I've had sheets. I started doing this, I think, a year and a half ago. So I've had sheets, like collecting sheets the entire time and kind of always looking for sheets. Um, but yeah, this rug specifically, I like put the pink ring on and then I like agonized over whether I wanted to take it off or not. And I know I told some of you about it. And then I decided at night I was gonna do it, and then in the morning I went and ripped it all off, and I felt amazing. So sometimes it feels really good. Yeah. And it's
like
yeah.
it could maybe make you appreciate what was up there in the first place.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're like, wow,
yeah. Yeah, because originally I wanted to be like a huge rug, the biggest rug I've ever made, and then I was like, nah, it's great. You're great. Yeah. And it's fun to rip it out because it kind of pops out if anyone crochets, but yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
And then, yay, we got a clap from Joe. That's great. Yeah. All right, now it's Evie. And where?
Everybody get up and stretch.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a stack? Evie's tummy is bubbling. So is mine, but
All right. I think you guys are gonna have to. I don't think she can have a snack while she's doing artist talk. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could if you wanted to. All right. Abby's gonna come up soon, and I'm gonna put the screen share on. And then, oh, there's a chat. Oh, it's the claps. Okay, sweet. Full screen.
You guys can also like stand up while I'm talking and walk around. Like, you know, this is not official business.
You want us to all
Straight. No, I want you to do whatever feels good in your body.
Stage.
Slideshow. Yeah. All right. Oh, Diane's back. Sweet.
Just in time.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Evie Hidysmith, everyone. I'm sorry I didn't say you guys' last names.
Yeah. You're doing great. Okay. Wow, it is really, I don't like that I can't see myself.
Oh, you can it's okay. We
What did I do?
I'm not sure.
I don't really know what I did. Here we go.
Oh,
We're good.
and then there should be a little.
I saw myself for a second
Okay.
and I was in the frame.
You're okay.
I don't know, I'm really tall, you know, my head might just be like totally out. Okay, hi guys.
Hi.
I feel really like gushy about Kira and Jane. Like I want to just like spend my 30 minutes talking about their tops and being like, it was so cool when you said this. And like I'm not gonna do that, but I could. And there's like so much interesting overlap in all of us, and that's feeling really cool and really special to get to like hear and think through together in this sort of formal way. Even though we've been like talking so much already, it feels different. Yeah, I'm really inspired by both of you and grateful to be here. I'm gonna start by reading my like artist statement, which is a weird thing to do because artist statements usually suck and are really boring. But mine is a really strange poem that I wrote. And so it feels appropriate to read it to give you some context. And then I'll do a bunch of more chill talking. Okay. If you want, you can look at this picture of the things that I'm talking about, or you can close your eyes and imagine that you're little me. Okay. Something is always unraveling. I'm 4 or 5 or somewhere in between and have curled myself between the green stems, yellow flowers, and lilac bulbs in the back corner of my mother's untended garden. No one bothers me here. My small feet, safe in my favorite red polka dot rain boots, squish rotten plums and stumble over rock-hard crab apples. Through the layered branches, braided strands of grass, and worn woven metal of the back fence, I can almost catch a glimpse of something new. There's another way of being, another lens through which to see myself as intertwined with everything, instead of alone and too small to be exploring on my own. The sourgrass stems and rotting wooden lattice hint at something that feels like hope, always just barely out of reach. I think about this garden often. It still sits in the back corner of a classic Dolger model house on 23rd Avenue, a 10-minute drive, 20-minute train ride, 30-minute walk from the apartment I now picture when I think of home. I've thought many times about knocking on the front door or slipping a note in the mailbox, asking if just for a moment I could curl up beneath the plum trees. They would be smaller now, or I would be bigger, or it wouldn't make sense anymore, the way that my lanky limbs take up too much space and the fallen crab apples no longer fill my whole palm. I visit it instead in dreams and drawings. At night, I find myself stuck in a web of moss and lichen, green mesh twisting around me. I startle awake unsatisfied. Often, I wander through the hidden clearings in Golden Gate Park, trying to catch a glimpse of that mysterious unknown.
Soft wisps of green drip down from the eucalyptus, and that's embarrassing. And redwood limbs above my head. Upon closer inspection, each strand of lime-colored lichen is a delicate woven mesh, like lace or spider webs. I learned that the word symbiosis was created to describe lichen. Two unique organisms, fungus and algae, become so indistinguishable from one another that they form something new. In foggy coastal forests like the ones I've grown up roaming, they can only survive together. Staring at bark beetle, Staring at bark beetle and termite paths carved in a fallen log, each repeating shape forms meaning, a word in another language. I learned that termites are detritivagous. They eat things that are already dead, left behind to disintegrate. In their bodies, wood is consumed, morphed, changed. Their hunger carves itself into the bark, their communal movement leaving behind a network of repeated shapes. My hands draw termite paths and lichen lattices from memory now, unthinkingly scrawled on the edges of to-do lists and scattered journal entries. I weave them into large layered tapestries, print them with sunlight, and recreate their relationships through movable clay structures, asking, what happens when one piece of a system unravels? How much pressure can a structure endure before it breaks? How can we transform broken pieces to create new meaning? How vast is our human capacity for symbiosis? I want to show you a world where we move as lichen and termites do, a vast community acting as one cohesive whole. Yeah, this is me. Vibe change. That's little me. I was obsessed with this pink dress, and I think the first song that I ever wrote was about this dress. It was just me banging on the piano going, my pink dress, and it was really awesome. These are my parents. My mom, who just tried to take a recording of me reading that, is a musician. She's a really, really incredible musician. And my dad is an artist. They met on a radio show where he was doing like AV tech stuff, which I think is what this picture is from. And I feel like they really like instilled in me this potential to just like make everything a project and like be curious all the time. Yeah, and I think like a big part of my like early art access was like through figure drawing. I took the same figure drawing class for like over 10 years, every Friday, and it was incredible to watch different bodies changing over time. We had a lot of the same models coming back. We had a lot of trans models who I got to watch like through different transitions. I had one model who was pregnant, who we got to watch through her entire pregnancy, and then she modeled with the baby. Another model who I got to draw through chemo and then getting a double mastectomy. And this was all when I was like, 13 onwards. And so like I think having this like incredible access to other people's bodies in like a non-sexual and like still really beautiful way was like really powerful to me. And I think it also really helped me train how to like move my hands with my eyes and how to really see things differently. I don't draw people the way that they are. I draw them the way that they are to me or the way that like my hands can read them. And this has been like a huge part of I think how I think about creativity and yeah, and I think bodies are like a really big theme for me. Like I think that just like the human form is something that's like really intriguing and interesting to me, and that will come up again later. So these are a bunch of just random figure drawings from I don't really know when, they're old. Yeah. So this is me. My obsession with bodies turned into like I'm gonna be a doctor. My parents are both like crazy artists and we don't have any money, so I was like I'm gonna be a doctor and have a stable career, and I was obsessed with that, and I hated it. It was like so not for me. I loved being an EMT. I did not want to like take the MCAT and go study all the time, and I don't think that it just was never meant to be what I was gonna do. But I learned a lot about myself through this, and I think that it like still comes up in the way that I make art all the time and the way that I think about the world. that's probably supposed to have something, but it doesn't. Um, yeah, after college, I feel like I went to Brown. All my roommates went to RISD. They're all artists. They're all crazy. They're all awesome. And I feel like that was a critical moment for me where I was like I was in this really intense like pre-med culture and I was next to all of these people who were like making things with their hands all the time. And I was like, oh my God, like that's what I need to be doing. Um, and so when I moved back to San Francisco after college, this was like the biggest first project that I did. I found this therapy that my mom sent me a podcast about actually, and I got really into it. You can read this description that I wrote, but it's a series of worksheets, and I am like super type A brain. And so when I was like, I can do therapy as worksheets by myself, that was like really exciting to me. Um, but I also like wanted to be able to do this process like I didn't want to do it with a therapist. I wanted to be able to do it like holding onto something different. So I did the whole process as a quilt. And so I would like do one worksheet and then like draw and then sew things together. And it's sort of like long and complicated. And I'm not going to talk about that much, but this was like the beginning of it. So like this on the bottom left is like one of the worksheets. This was like a figure drawing that I had made. This was like some of the stuff that came out of the worksheets. Um, I don't know if these will work or if they're really worth sharing. I also like videotaped myself doing every single worksheet and I videotaped myself making every single part of the quilt, which I've never actually shown anyone, but my plan was to make this like crazy video project that was like part of it. Um, this was me in my room doing this crazy therapy thing. Um, anyway, so different pieces of the quilt came out of the different worksheets. Like this is a bad blurry photo, but the you can see what I'm talking about. The diamonds in the quilt are the background. All the fabric that I used was my great great grandmother's pillowcases. Every time somebody got married, I think she would like make a pillowcase for them or something, and it had all this hand crocheted lace on it. And so I dyed it all with my mom's favorite tea, and I had this cat for a while that was helping me. A lot of the work that I do, I have a knitting machine and I make these like knit swatches and then I cut them apart and sew them back together. So it's this sort of like textile collage thing, which is what's going on here. Um, that's another video that we don't need to watch. Anyway, this is what the full quilt looks like. It looks really different in person and I wish I had brought it. It's very big and it's hard to photograph because it's so light. But this is like what it looks like up close. It's like really, really intricate. It took me an entire year to make it. Um, yeah, and I think that like this project was the thing that made me be like, oh, I could do this. Like I can like make things that have meaning and it can like be fruitful for myself and it can also be sort of like an offering into the world and like that can take different shapes at different points in time. But this was like my entry point. Um, After I was an EMT, I was a tenants rights counselor for a year, which is like a whole other area that I won't get into. But then that job got really gnarly and I quit really unexpectedly. And I needed a job. And so I became the pandemic counselor or coordinator at a high school in 2021. And that sucked and was like really, really intense. And also, I'm really glad I did it for a lot of reasons, including yeah, this I don't know why I put this in here. I think I thought it was funny. I was really like not having a good time. It's pretty cute. So I was sitting in this room that had like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these boxes. Every one of these boxes is like 40 tests, and they were just like this was my office, and it I had to personally, individually test all of the kids in the whole school. and the thing about it, I was like fine doing it, but I was like, this is so much trash. And I was just sitting in my office every day in these like mountains of trash. And I was like, what the fuck do I do with this? And so I got a sewing machine and I put it on my desk and I just like started fucking around. And it was really fun. And suddenly I was like, oh, maybe this job like doesn't suck as much as I thought it would, or like there I felt like it was like giving me a lot of hope in this time where I was like, everything sucks, everything is disgusting, everything is dirty, everything is harming the planet. And I was like, okay, I need to find like some tiny sliver in this. Yeah. So this is probably another video. So this is what it became. We don't need to watch my stop motion videos of me in my room. Okay. This is me in my room sewing trash. Are you happy, Kira? Okay. Thanks, Joe. I'm so glad. This is my quilt that I made. I'm still really proud of it. Like I made this a long time ago, and I think a lot of the things that I've made, I don't know. I think I'm usually really hard on myself, and a lot of the things that I make, I'm like, that sucks. But this, I'm like, that's cool. And I feel like it's really beautiful. Like it's like pleasing to look at, and I think I feel grateful that I was able to like make something that's beautiful out of these like disgusting, dinky wrapper things. And that's something that I like really want to try and do more of. Yeah. I took this like, or a friend helped me like photograph it in all these other fun ways. Like it's really durable, it's waterproof. We like took it outside and we're running around, and that was really fun. Yeah. So I think after working on those two projects, which were both like big, I work big and I work long and I work slow. Like I think similarly to Jane, like a lot of the things that I do are like to figure out how to make that trash quilt, I had to sew like 50 versions of it that broke. And that I broke my machine and I broke every single needle I was using because I didn't understand how it worked. And like I think, yeah, I don't know, working on those two really big projects, I was like, this is a really meaningful thing to me and I want to keep doing it. So I went to grad school. I just finished my first year. I have one more year left. This is my studio, and it's like the biggest gift I've ever given myself, that I like have a space that's only mine, that I can like be as messy or as loud or as whatever as I want to. I can go there, I can work, I can go there, I can like lay on the floor in the sun and take a nap, and like nobody gets to bother me. And I've made so much. Like I've made so much more than I ever thought I could make in the past year, and it's felt really good and really hard. I think one reason it's felt hard and that it was hard to like decide to go to school in the first place was that like being an, sort of like active community member in the world and like showing up to fight for my community and for other communities is like a really big part of how I navigate the world. And I think that often I have felt like making art is like not a part of that, that it's like this thing that I do that's more selfish or more personal, that it's about like processing my own emotions. Um, and I've just really like had to and am continuing to grapple with that. And so I think these are two ways that I'm like thinking about like how can I use the skills that I'm learning to like show up in my community by like making art for the movement. But then also to be like, I think one thing I've been talking about a lot is this idea of like there's the people that you have to like tear down systems with, and then there are the people that you want to like build up new systems with, and that there are these like two simultaneous processes that we're always working on. And I think that like the way that I make art is really about the building up and being like, what are imaginative other ways of interacting with each other that we can build? And like there's a lot of hope in that, and people will not tear anything down if they don't believe that there's something to replace it with. So I think for me, like my role as an artist is being like, this is the other option, like this is the way we can engage with each other that's like new and different and like sustainable. And like that's what my art practice is about. And I like am doing all this work of tearing things down separately from that, and that's like meaningful to me to hold those two together. So I don't know, it's related and unrelated and would feel wrong to like not engage with that. But um these are like some random things that I've made in grad school. Like I've done a lot of like experimenting and just like talking around and making things I hate. Um, these are these drawings of the like bark beetle termite paths in wood. I've done a lot of these. I've been doing some of these here. Um, these are these like little sketches I made. I think a lot about like different strong structures and like how a woven structure or a knit structure or like a chain structure, like how are there these different individual loops and then how are they like relating to one another and how is like the strength of the structure influenced by the loss of any individual. And all of this is obviously like a metaphor for people, right? But I'm just like looking at these really like tiny tactile things to do it. I gotta stop using my hands like this. I've made a lot of lumen prints, which are just like photo darkroom paper that you just expose to the light. And they're really crazy. Like, I don't know if you can see how insane the colors are in here, but they're like really crazy. And they don't make any sense. Like, you can't predict what's going to happen, especially because like a lot of the paper that I'm using is expired. So it just like goes crazy. This is from a piece of lichen that I took like 30 pieces of lichen and sewed them all together and then put it on a piece of paper. So that's what this is. And then I think I poured like salt and orange juice on it or something to try and like change the colors. Um, but I've made a lot of those. Um, I have made a lot of music this year also, which has been really powerful and new and surprising to me. I think I always make this joke, but the fact that like my mom is a musician and my dad is an artist and they're super divorced has made me be like, there are these like two ways that I exist in the world and they're not related. And I think a big part of like grad school for me has been trying to like let myself combine those two things and weave them together more naturally. And also just share with people. I'm pretty shy and I have super bad stage fright, as we all saw last night. And I like, it's really hard for me to be vulnerable with like groups. I think I'm really like a one-on-one person and it's really easy for me to bare my soul to an individual person. But when I like have the spotlight, I like crumble. And so I'm just trying to get better at that. And I think music is one of the things that's like pushing me through that. So I've written a bunch of songs. This was the first set of songs that I like recorded in my roommate M's car while we were staying at a cabin in the woods in January. But they're like out in the world. And then this is like the bulk of what I've like been working on this past year is these like big projects. I work on a really big sort of shitty tapestry loom that's just like a bunch of nails in the wall in my studio to make these. And they're like really like they're not useful, right? Like I think similarly to like what we've been discussing of like is something like a useful object? Is it like is it an art object? Is it a home object? Is it like telling a story? Like I don't necessarily know how these always fall into those things, but like they're definitely not useful. There's something else. These are shapes from the bugs, my bug shapes. I went through a whole phase where I like wrote out an entire like language. So like each symbol is a word that has meaning to me. And I was like writing all this like poetry for a while, like in the shapes. And then I was like, this feels like a little bit stupid or like it's leading in this like weird direction. And so I've sort of stopped. And I think it started to feel limiting or something. But that's what those are. This is another one I made. The things in the back are like ceramic pieces of lichen. Um, yeah, a lot of it is hard to translate with photos because they're just so like I want you to touch them. Like I feel like you have to like be in it. Um, yeah, and then this one this I think I had the most fun with. I made this huge ceramic quilt thing. Um, it's really big and it's really heavy. And my dear best friend roommate and I took it to the beach and she's an incredible dancer. And so we made this video. I'm gonna skip into the beginning a little bit, but we can watch it for like 1 minute. Can you hear the noise at all? It makes a really good. Okay. I don't want to take up too much time, but I had so much fun doing this and doing this with them, and I like showed this video to one of my professors, and she was like, the only reason this works is because of like the relationship that the two of you have already. And she was like, if you did this with a stranger, like this video wouldn't make sense. And I think I love that, and I think about that a lot. And so thinking about how can I like make I have so many ideas about how I can like make these objects that like just like make a relationship visible, which in some ways is like so similar, I think, to Kira's like question asking, like where you're like making someone's relationship to their home visible by asking them these questions. And I'm like, what does it look like to have a material object to be the thing that makes that like opens that relationship to the world? And like, I don't know, I have a lot of ideas. I'm still figuring it out. I feel very like in the midst of whatever. I don't know how to do this. I just want it to go. Ah, that's okay. That's fine. That's oh, God, Lord. Okay, this is the other music that I made this year. You should go listen to it if you want to. It's called Harmonizing with the Microwave because there's one note that goes throughout the whole album. And it was really fun to make. And my partner Kai helped me make a lot of it because technology is really hard, and I'm really grateful for that. And okay, and then we're here, and this is the last 2 minutes, and then we're done. I'm living on this boat. You've all heard me talk about the boat because I'm obsessed with the boat. It just like really spoke to me. Like the minute I got here, I felt really like enamored with it. I think it feels like this thing that's like it's both been like deeply loved by people, but it's also been like deeply forgotten. And like I don't know, I think there's something about it that just like feels yeah, it's really like touched me. Um, this is a timeless video of me cleaning the boat that we don't you don't show, but it was I really had a couple days of like real deep cleaning. I've been drawing, I've been weaving, I've been working on this like weird patchwork thing that I think is kind of ugly, but I'm gonna try and force myself to finish anyway. Um, yeah, and you guys should all come to our final show. It's me and Kira, and we're gonna go crazy. We're gonna do such a good job. We're gonna really like transform the dome, and then a ton of other people are gonna play a bunch of music that I wrote, and it's gonna be a big party, and you should all be there. And that was a lot of talking.
That's a perfect question.
But if there's never been time for questions, it's just saying this.
Yeah, that's like I would say that regardless.
Do you have your beetle language written out somewhere that we
Yes.
can look at?
No, it's a secret. You can't see it. I do. I do have it. I have not shared it with anyone actually, and I don't think I want to. I think one thing that I have learned as I get older, I have never been good at keeping things to myself or for myself. I like can't keep a secret, and I am an extreme oversharer, and I also like don't like keep time for myself or like take care of myself, and so I'm like, turn my language, mine. You don't get it. Lovingly, but you should make your own.
You did. Good.
Language?
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta talk about that. What's up?
I just want to say something.
That's really nice.
The second that. Do you have any like visual motifs that are coming up in your art now that you like or anything like that?
That's a good question. I mean, I think and like all these different sort of like grid patterns and like knit structures and like I mean if you like look at my notebooks and stuff, it's like it's all these like yeah, that it's a little hard to describe, but that's a big one. I think bodies are also like still in there. I think the way that I draw is really like body based, even if it's not like even if that's not always obvious. I don't know what else. There's definitely a lot of like word motifs in the music that I write. They're like specific words that I accidentally use over and over again.
Yeah.
It's a comment, but I didn't realize that you did like pre-med. That's insane. And it's interesting to me that like that kind of like interest in like care for people or like community was like showing up in a really specific way, and then switching gears that seems like really far away, but like I can see the through line between that and then like moving into art and like the motifs you're working with about like weaving together, and like that you had something about like what if we have like the lessons that like lichen and termites have to offer, which is like we're all part of this big network together. Yeah, that's an interesting connection that I really remember.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
either.
I don't know.
It's crazy
Wow.
that
Yeah.
now I'm here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Something's baking, but I'm just gonna not have it be perfect. Is there like, do you have thoughts on like time and loss? And also I love you. But I say that because my friend Kate, who I make art with, she's also made a language based on the way that sun hits buildings and then reflects, and they make what she calls sun blips. And it's all like depending on these like very steady phallic structures, man-made, like, and then the timing of the sun, you can revisit something and it'll be the same a year from that. The way the sun, all of that stuff, right? Like time, and we often talk about like something has replaced something else, right? There's loss there, but like nature always shines through, literally, like the sun. And I see that in your work, like not only the language, but the depth and the like and all of that stuff. So I'm curious.
I love that. I gotta see that sunglass thing. Yeah, I feel like I think about both of those things a lot. I think I try not to like, yeah, I feel like I sit in my like loss of my like childhood a lot, and it's like a very intense feeling for me. And I try not to like give it, I try to like learn from that, but like not give it too much space or be like, how is this also like a shared communal experience instead of being like, I'm so alone in this thing that I didn't have. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have really articulated thoughts about it yet, but
Everything you do is so long.
everything I do is really long. Yeah. 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 But I also work really fast. And I also like, I think about the way that I like work things out physically. It means that I think really quickly. Like when I make a big decision, I don't even feel like I make it. It has already like been made for me, like in my subconscious, and I don't even notice it. So it's like I work really slow, but I also like I don't know. Brains are crazy. That's the only thing I've learned. Okay. We're done now. No. They can ask me later. Like literally my two roommates and my mother.
Chat. There's a chat.
What? It's Joe getting on a plane. That's so cute. Bye, Joe. Okay. Can we be done now?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys for coming. Bye.